I'm Diego Cordoves.
Adam Schoenfeld.
Welcome to The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. And we have Vanessa Selbst. She has triumphed in a number of tournaments, even though she doesn't play very many.
She makes such a mockery of our puny achievements with her Yale Law School.
She's going to Yale Law School, one of the best law schools in the country. She's in her third year. And on her breaks, she wins $750,000
like
first
nothing.
prizes.
Right.
And she also is very articulate, very analytical about the game. So it's going to be very good. Okay, let's set all modesty aside. Pound for pound, in the metaphorical sense, you may be the most successful tournament player going just because you don't play very many tournaments and you win every 3 months or so.
Yeah, it's sustainable, I'm pretty sure. I've played like 25 tournaments in the last 2 years, including the 2008 WSP. I have, I think, like 4 first places, 2 thirds, and then a couple other cashes. So,
I mean, what people don't realize is there are a lot of names that legitimately have been successful but who are playing constantly. You're a full-time law student at Yale, maybe the best law school in the country, and so of course you only play really big tournaments or ones that are convenient for you. You won a bracelet in PLO, back-to-back you made the semifinals of the Heads Up at the World Series. You won this huge NAPT tournament.
Just $750,000.
And I read that at some point you decided really to pull back from poker and you only would play local tournaments, so you won 2 tournaments at Foxwoods and this NAPT in Mohegan Sun.
Right, yeah, no, I mean, like, look, I'm obviously running extremely above expectation, but, like, it's been great because I really have only been able to play the tournaments at Foxwoods or Mohegan Sun, and then I joke that my law school friends must think it's, like, they expect me to win tournaments,
right.
Like, they don't really know that it's kind of hard to win a poker tournament because they just go up there and every time I just come back and they say, oh, yeah, I won it.
You're setting up some very tough expectations. You know, they're like, every break, win a tournament.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we could say for everyone, the mode result in a tournament is 0, except for you. Yeah, if you ever show up back at New Haven without a win, they're going to drum you right out of it.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of scared about this PokerStars sponsorship thing because, like, they're expecting me to play a lot of tournaments, and I'm kind of scared that, like, if I don't win 1 out of every 3, I'm not going to live up to exactly like what they expect of me. So I'm a little nervous about that. But.
No, but it's obviously you'll continue to have success. But it is a remarkable thing because at some point you really pulled back to where you were playing very little poker. Is that right?
Yeah, I haven't. You know, I played over the past 2 years. I just played the Foxwoods prelims once a year, and then I went to Australia with Deuces Crack this year, and then played the NAPT Mohegan Sun, and that was it.
Was that out of desire just to focus on more important things in
yeah,
life,
apparently
or
law school is hard.
Of poker, or what are the?
Yeah, no, I went back to law school. You know, I really want to do civil rights law, and you know, have some interests that you know I think are really important. And I was sort of not really focusing on them, and I felt like that was something that was important to me that I wasn't going to be able to do if I wasn't sort of committing myself to it. So when I went back to law school, I said, you know, I have to really, really do this. And the first 2 years, you know, these past 2 years, I really have pretty much focused primarily on law school, just because you kind of have to, especially, you know, the first and second year are the hardest years. And apparently Yale is no joke. Like, they actually make you do some work and stuff. So, you know, it's been a really great experience, but I definitely miss poker now, and so I'm going to go back and forth a little bit more now.
How much overlap is there in the part of your brain that you use for legal endeavors and the part that you use for poker endeavors? I mean, if you drew a Venn diagram, there's like a big math part in poker that wouldn't necessarily apply to law school, but explain.
I mean, I think the Venn diagram, there's 2 Venn diagrams. One is the subconscious and one's the conscious. I mean, in terms of what I'm consciously thinking about, you know, when I'm litigating, you know, human rights issues for whatever, you know, defending, you know, people in jail or something like that, I'm obviously not thinking about expected value and odds, although, you know, in litigation that does come up sometimes, but not in what I'm doing, just because we're not worried about sort of the EV of a settlement. We're worried about how much money can we get for our client such that it's life-changing for them. And you obviously always pass up EV because these are people that just need some money. But in terms of the subconscious, I think, you know, the kind of thinking that you're doing, the kind of sort of logical thought processes, like when you're sort of putting together a legal argument, is exactly the same. And I think that's why you see a lot of lawyers that want to be poker players, a lot of poker players talk about going into law school, do well in their LSATs. You know, it really is a lot of crossover, and just in terms of the fundamental ways of thinking, but for me, not necessarily in terms of the subject matter.
I was thinking this is partially irrelevant. That you see all these, you see all these giant prop bets at the World Series,
right?
And I'm thinking of putting together a dream team to take like SAT verbal and just prop bet against guys who are super big prop bettors who might not realize how difficult it is. But I'm
Right.
going to take you on my team. I'm gonna have
SAT
Diego.
verbal?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's kind of tough. I feel like I don't know. It's
I
been a
read your
long
paper.
time.
You have a good vocabulary,
Yeah.
and excellent command of the
Yeah,
language.
well, do I get to use like thesaurus.com when I take SAT verbal?
Of course not.
Oh, well then.
That's like a head-up display. It's like
Yeah.
a training aid.
The couple of years when you pulled back, obviously there is the aspect of needing to spend time studying, getting good grades, and so forth. But was there ever kind of a pull between, well, I'm doing really meaningful things that can change the world, and poker is essentially more of a selfish pursuit? I mean, I'm not to put words in your mouth, but was there ever any pull like that, or it was just strictly a decision based on time management?
No, I mean, for me, it's always been something that's important, recognizing that poker is, a zero-sum game that isn't really contributing anything to the world. When I first,
entertainment,
value. Yeah, I mean, when I first left poker in 2008, it was really with the idea that I would really just become a recreational player, and it didn't pan out because I missed it too much, but I had never been just a poker player. I've always done things on the side. Even when I was playing, I guess, semi-full-time for a year and a half before law school, I was, back in Brooklyn, probably a couple, I would say 1 week out of every 3, and I was, volunteering in a nonprofit at that point too, because I think that, it's partly for my own selfish reasons in that I think when you're so wrapped up in the poker world and not doing things outside, it's really easy to become enveloped in this really insular world that just isn't really all that important when you get outside of it. But, honestly, that's true for any community. I mean, that's true in law school, too. Everyone thinks that the paper they're writing is the most important thing in the world, and then you leave law school, and all of a sudden, no one gives a I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
It's fine.
Okay. But yeah, so, I mean, I think it's really important to do other things, and for me, that's always been, social justice things and, contributing something. But even if it's like business interests or whatever it is, I mean, I think even something like business is actually contributing more than poker because it's actually like generating some sort of utility in the world.
We worked in business probably a little bit longer than you might have, and it's not.
Yeah, fair enough.
It depends.
It's a lot of meetings with very little produced.
But even
I did management consulting actually for a hot 6 months. It was all about that.
But even poker, of course, it generates revenue and generates jobs.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an industry around it. I mean, there's an industry that's been built around it, that's for sure. And it's interesting. It's like what I've started to see is the root, a lot of us sort of came up in poker and we're so excited about it and wanted to play all the time. And now a lot of us have, most of the really successful players have realized that you need to do something else. But the direction a lot of people have gone is starting new projects within the poker industry that has developed since then, whether it's training sites like, Deuces Cracked or, other things, just sort of doing documentaries or starting up, media sites or really whatever it is. I mean, there's so much that has come up in this industry. Yeah, in this poker-related industry, which is, I think, really cool.
I mean, besides the training site and the fact that you've been very active in that, your other endeavors, do they make poker more of a means to an end, kind of funding or just supporting what else you're doing? Or does poker kind of fulfill another need, whether it's an ego need or just the fact that if you're good at something, you feel that you enjoy...
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely not just a means to an end. I mean, it's always been fun. I think it stopped being fun for a little while because I was so caught up in playing all the time, and that's when I took a step back. And, I think through having other things going on, you can really... I mean, it's about the game. Like, that's why, most of us, and when I say us, I sort of mean the generation of younger talent that started in this game, 4 or 5 years ago. It's always been about the game, and I think the minute it stops being fun, for some people they just want, their goal is to make a lot of money. That's never been a goal of mine. It's nice, I'm not gonna lie, but I think whenever it stops being fun, I'm just gonna temporarily, like last time, or more permanently, just leave the game because it's just not worth it.
You're certainly among the handful of best players in the world, period. But I noticed that you do participate in some women's events. This year there was a little bit of controversy around the idea of having what they call the ladies' event. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't have a problem with ladies' events. I really think that they get more women into poker. I mean, a lot of women come out, they love the event, they come out and play it because it's just something to look forward to. It's not necessarily that they can't play with men. It's just, it really is a more enjoyable experience. I mean, it's something that's hard to explain. I mean, for me, I obviously don't mind playing with guys and I like it, but I love the women's event. I mean, I think it's something I definitely look forward to. It's just fun because to see these women that really don't look forward to anything else in poker. I think it's really inspiring. And there definitely have been some women that I've met in the women's events who started playing the women's events and have since branched out into other tournaments as well. So I think the controversy over whether or not it's a bracelet event, I don't know, maybe I just don't care enough about bracelets and I don't really get the true value of it, but I don't really care, and I think it's a great event, and I think the guys that want to sit in and play as their sort of protest, I mean, that's all bull. Let's be honest. Like, they're playing because obviously their EV is higher, it's a softer tournament.
Or they want to publicize themselves and market themselves in some silly way. There's no genuine.
I'll take a minor disagreement. I think I agree 85% with 85% of what you said. I think there is a legitimate political position against.
Sure, there's a legitimate political position.
I pretty much agree with that.
I mean, there might be a legitimate political position that you can take, but the fact that they're a form of protest, like, conveniently comes once a year in the form of generating, like, massive expected value for themselves. Like,
I've spoken saying that I'm not in favor of having a ladies, especially calling it ladies. I would prefer women's, and giving a bracelet, I don't think it's a good idea, but I'm not going to play in the event either. So I sort of agree with you.
I just think that the protesters are very cynical because it's completely self-serving.
That's indisputable that a lot of them are cynical. Vanessa, you're known, tell me if I'm wrong about this, for almost an animalistically aggressive style of play. Is that fair characterization?
Despite your very pleasant demeanor.
Right, I'm shocked you haven't
yelled
at me yet.
Apparently you're quite violent at the table.
That's my reputation. I can't attest. To me, it seems totally normal.
Not behavior. We're just
but isn't it like I thought like a 40% VPIP, 35% raise was like completely normal for a 10-handed table. Is that not?
And you've been able to maintain that.
I mean, no. I've obviously had to make some adjustments. Like my first televised appearance involved me 4-bet shoving with 5 deuce suited against, somehow he had pocket aces. I'm just always really confused when people get dealt things like pocket aces.
They're not supposed to have it.
Doesn't seem like you get those hands very often. So, no, I mean, I definitely that's pretty true. My style is all about, putting pressure on people and raising and re-raising. I'll definitely, I would say if there's 20 people left and I'm the chip leader in a major tournament, I'm the one that's most likely to be, busto in, 19th or 18th place. So.
It's funny, because I was reading your description. You do... Well, I've watched your videos also. I'm a fan of Deuces Cracked, paying member, and a fan of yours.
That's the way to be.
And in one of your videos, you did they would call it thin slicing, or I might call it ethnic stereotyping or age stereotyping, where you're drawing a lot of inferences just at one glance at a person. Right. Can you discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I realize, I partly say stuff like that because it's, controversial and funny.
Yeah, it's funny also, right?
Yeah, but, honestly, I mean, at a poker table, the way you get reads at a poker table is you start from a baseline, which is how most people play the game based on your own experience, and when you have no reads about someone, it's how, the average person plays the game. But if there are stereotypes that you can go on, for instance, whatever it happens to be, that, Asian men tend to be more aggressive, gamblers, whatever, okay, am I going to be slightly concerned that my inner monologue is, perhaps not the most PC? Probably not, because it's going to generate my EV and it's getting a little higher. Yeah. Well, sometimes, unless I'm talking on Deuces Cracked videos. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously some stereotypes that we all know that you have to sign up to Deuces Cracked to find out if it's really that big a surprise. But, I just think that, until you have, obviously, if that's my read, because, there's some woman there, and I assume that she's tight passive, and then all of a sudden I see her 3-bet bluff someone and show it. Well, okay, my read changes.
Or 4-bet shove with a 5 deuce. Now you recategorize.
Yeah, I don't think I get lumped into the tight passive woman category, unfortunately. But
maybe at first you did, which would be pretty interesting.
I know. I wish that I still had that image, but
there was a great passage. I'm sorry, from one of your blog entries where you're describing a hand against Alan Sternberg, and either you had just been moved to his table or he had been moved to your table, and he had a lot of chips, and you said, and usually how people get a lot of these chips is by playing tons of hands, playing really fast, so that's how you had him pegged. And then it just came out as a side note that your stack was about 4x his stack.
That's funny, I didn't even think about
that. Which I enjoyed.
Well, yeah, that's actually really funny. Well, the 2 majors that I've won have been close to wire to wire, and I think that that's really telling, because it's I say to people, I've said before in conversation that I don't really have very many cashes. Most of my cashes are final tables, and they say, oh, you're just bragging. I'm like, no, I'm not bragging. I don't I totally miss the money in most events I play. It's completely high variance style, but if I get a lot of chips,
it's not just at the end, but you want to start out with a lot of chips also.
Yeah.
Gamble early and hopefully have a big chip.
No,
that you can
absolutely.
use.
I love playing with chips. I mean, sitting there grinding like 16 BBs or big blinds, excuse me. Sorry, I know Daniel on the grinder hates when you use internet speak on a
BB is acceptable
broadcast.
jargon.
Yeah, we don't have a
Okay.
ban on
Yeah,
it.
Daniel's not the boss of us.
Okay, well, I think he's like maybe close to the boss of me now or so. I don't know how that works. I don't really coach,
Self-appointed.
I'm supposed to make him happy, I think. So anyway, big blinds, you have 16, you need to grind it out, but it's obviously a lot more fun to have a deep stack and push people around. So.
Thanks for joining us on The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. And it's been very interesting with Vanessa Selbst. We're going to invite her back to the Scoop studios for another episode next week. In the meantime, write to us at thescoop@cardplayer.com.